Have you ever wondered what happens when you vanish from someone's life? Not just pulling back a little, but completely disappearing. No texts, no calls, no explanations. It's a bold move, one that flips the script in a world where people are used to taking others for granted. But when you step away without warning, you reclaim your power. This isn't about playing games or being petty. It's about valuing yourself enough to walk away from situations where you're treated like an option. Today, we're diving into an intense topic: what they feel when you vanish. I'm going to walk you through 9 emotional stages they experience when you remove yourself from their life, plus a bonus 10th stage that's a game changer. By the end of this, you'll understand why disappearing can be one of the most empowering moves you make, not just for how they'll feel, but for how you'll transform. If you've ever been stuck in a relationship or situation where someone didn't value you, where they got too comfortable, this is your wake-up call. Drop a comment below with the words, "I'm done being an option," because by the end of this, you won't ever be one again. Now let's get into the first stage. It's where the reality of your absence hits them like a thunderbolt. Ready? Let's go. 1. The void of missing you. When you vanish, the first thing they might feel is a fleeting sense of relief. For a moment, they think they've regained their freedom, like they've shed some sort of invisible weight. But that feeling doesn't last. What takes its place is a void, a hollow, gnawing emptiness that grows stronger with each passing day. They didn't think they'd miss you, not really. They convinced themselves they wouldn't care. If they leave, I'll just move on, they told themselves. But the reality hits harder than they expected. Suddenly, everything in their life feels just a little more dull. Conversations lack depth, daily routines feel heavier, and the spark you brought into their world is gone. Here's the irony. They never noticed the ways you filled their life until you weren't there to do it anymore. They start to crave the things they took for granted: your energy, your humor, your understanding. They realize that you weren't just someone who passed the time, you were someone who added meaning to it. The void you leave behind can't be filled with distractions. They might try throwing themselves into work, hanging out with friends, or even pursuing someone new, but nothing hits the same. Those quick fixes only make the absence feel bigger because they remind them of what they no longer have. Let them feel the void. Let them sit in the quiet moments when they're scrolling through their phone, hoping for a text from you that will never come. That void is the price they pay for taking you for granted, and the longer it stays, the more they'll understand exactly what they lost. 2. The sting of rejection. Rejection is a sharp, undeniable slap in the face, and when you disappear, it's the first thing they feel. They never thought you'd actually leave. To them, you were always supposed to be there, the one who cared more, who put in the effort, who made everything work. But now, you're gone, and they're left wondering how they didn't see this coming. The sting isn't just about your absence, it's about the power shift. They thought they held all the control, but the moment you vanished, they realized they were wrong. They took you for granted, believing you'd always be an option, and now they're grappling with the fact that you're not. Here's the thing. People grow complacent when they believe someone will never leave. You become their safety net, their constant, and they stop appreciating the effort you put into the relationship. But when you walk away, silently, without warning, you shatter that illusion. You make it clear that you won't stick around to be treated like an afterthought. Rejection stings because it forces them to face their own shortcomings. They begin to wonder why they didn't prioritize you, why they let things fall apart, why they couldn't see your worth until it was too late. And that sting lingers. Every time they go to text you or think about reaching out, they're reminded that you're no longer there. By disappearing, you've done more than reject them. You've reclaimed your power. You've shown them that you're not someone who will settle for being taken for granted. That sting of rejection, let it burn. It's the wake-up call they desperately needed, and it's the first step in them realizing just how much they lost. 3. Overwhelming curiosity. When you disappear, you leave them with a question they can't answer. What are they doing now? And this question becomes an obsession. Curiosity takes over their mind, and it eats away at them day by day. They can't help but wonder where you are, who you're with, and how you're spending your time. Here's the thing. Human beings hate not knowing. The uncertainty of your absence is worse than anything they could have imagined. They're used to having access to you, used to knowing your thoughts, plans, and whereabouts. Now, there's nothing but silence, and that silence is deafening. They'll start stalking your social media, hoping for clues. They'll check old messages, read through your comments, and maybe even ask mutual friends about you. But what happens when they find nothing? When you've truly gone dark and left no trail for them to follow? That's when curiosity turns into frustration. They start creating scenarios in their head. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you're happier without them. Maybe you've found someone who treats you better. The possibilities they imagine are endless, and none of them are comforting. The best part? The less they know, the more their curiosity grows. By keeping your life private, blocking them, avoiding mutual circles, staying silent, you're making them confront their own fears and insecurities. They can't handle not knowing, and it drives them to the brink. Let them stew in their curiosity. Let them wonder, worry, and second-guess everything. Because the truth is, the less they know about you, the more they realize how much they miss the connection they once had. And that realization will haunt them. 4. The fear that brings them crawling back. Fear is a powerful motivator, and when you disappear, it creeps in slowly but surely. At first, they might tell themselves they're fine without you, but over time, the fear begins to build. They start asking themselves the hard questions. What if they've moved on? What if they're happier without me? What if I'll never get them back? That fear hits them like a tidal wave. They realize they've lost control of the situation. You're no longer there, no longer reachable, and they don't know how to fix it. The thought of you being with someone else becomes unbearable. It's not just jealousy, it's the fear of being replaced, of becoming irrelevant in your life. This fear drives them to desperation. They might start reaching out, sending long texts filled with apologies and promises to change. They'll try to rekindle the connection, hoping it's not too late. But here's where you hold the power. You don't have to respond. The fear they feel now is a reflection of the control they thought they had over you. They assumed you'd never leave, that you'd always be available. But your absence proves them wrong. It shows them that you're not someone who can be taken for granted. Let them sit in that fear. Let them feel the full weight of what it means to lose you. Because by the time they come crawling back, begging for another chance, you'll have already moved on. Their fear is their burden to carry, not yours. And it's a lesson they won't soon forget. 5. The void of missing you. When you vanish, you leave more than just an empty space. You leave a void. At first, they might convince themselves that they're better off without you, but slowly, reality starts to set in. It's not just about your physical absence, it's the absence of your energy, your care, and your presence that hits them like a ton of bricks. They begin to notice the silence, the lack of texts, the moments where your laughter used to fill the air. Their daily routines feel off, and suddenly, the things they once took for granted about you become glaringly obvious. You were their stability, their sounding board, their source of comfort. And now, all of that is gone. Here's the kicker. They didn't realize how much of a role you played until it was too late. Maybe they thought they could replace you, or that someone else could step in and fill your shoes. But now they're discovering the hard truth. What you brought into their life was unique, irreplaceable. The void is more than just an emotional absence. It's a constant reminder of what they've lost. Every time they reach for their phone to text you, every time they encounter something that reminds them of you, the emptiness deepens. It's as though the world has become a little less vibrant, a little less meaningful, without you in it. Let them sit with that emptiness. Don't reach out to comfort them. Don't give them the reassurance they're craving, because that void is a powerful teacher, showing them that your presence wasn't just valuable, it was essential. And once they realize that, they'll wish they could turn back time, but by then, it'll be too late. 6. The battle between relief and regret. At first, they might feel a sense of relief. You're gone, and they think, good riddance. Now I can do what I want without any interruptions. They'll try to convince themselves that your absence is a blessing, that life will somehow be easier without you. But relief is a fragile thing, and it doesn't last. It's a fleeting feeling that quickly gives way to regret. They start replaying moments in their mind, things they said, things they did or didn't do. The times they ignored your efforts, dismissed your feelings, or failed to show appreciation. And with each memory, the regret deepens. They realize they had something good, something rare, and they threw it away. The freedom they thought they wanted feels empty now. The people they thought could replace you don't measure up. The life they thought would be better without you feels hollow. The battle between relief and regret is intense. On the surface, they might still act like they're fine, but deep down, the regret is winning. They start to see the cracks in their logic, the flaws in their assumptions. They thought they'd be happier without you, but now they're discovering that happiness isn't so easy to come by when they've lost someone like you. Let them fight that battle on their own. Don't give them closure, don't explain your reasons, and don't ease their regret. Because this is the moment they start to understand that their actions have consequences, that losing you was a mistake they'll have to live with, and that realization, it's worth more than anything you could ever say to them. 7. Overwhelming curiosity. Curiosity is a natural response to the unknown, and when you disappear, you become an enigma they can't figure out. Suddenly, they're consumed with questions. Where did they go? What are they doing? Who are they with? Your absence creates a vacuum of information, and that vacuum drives them wild. They'll obsessively scroll through social media, hoping to catch even the smallest glimpse of your life. But here's the kicker. You've gone silent. No posts, no stories, no updates. You've vanished without a trace, and it's infuriating for them. People are used to instant access, and when they can't have it, their imagination takes over. The unknown becomes unbearable. They start to wonder if you've moved on, if someone else has taken your place. Their mind spirals into worst-case scenarios, and every unanswered question amplifies their desperation. They might even start reaching out to mutual friends, fishing for information about you, too proud to admit they care, but too obsessed to let it go. This stage is their unraveling. The more they wonder, the more they realize how little they actually know about you now. You've taken control of the narrative by removing yourself entirely, and they can't handle not being in the loop. Their curiosity turns into frustration, and that frustration quickly morphs into regret. Here's where you hold all the power. The less they know, the more they'll want to know. Stay silent. Don't give them breadcrumbs to follow. Let them stew in their own thoughts, wondering what you're up to and why they can't seem to get over you. The mystery you create is far more powerful than any explanation you could give. 8. The crushing weight of silence. Silence is deafening, especially for someone who's used to having control. When you disappear, you leave behind not just physical absence, but an emotional void that echoes louder with each passing day. They expect you to reach out, to explain, to fight for the connection, but instead, you give them nothing. At first, they might convince themselves it doesn't matter. They'll try to brush off the silence as temporary, thinking they'll come back. But as days turn into weeks, that silence starts to crush them. It's relentless, unavoidable, and completely out of their control. They pick up their phone, hoping to see your name pop up. They scroll through old conversations, replaying the last messages you sent, trying to figure out what went wrong. Every moment of silence feels heavier than the last because it forces them to sit with their own thoughts, the thoughts they've been trying to avoid. Silence is a mirror. It reflects back their actions, their words, their choices. Without you there to distract them or ease the tension, they're left to confront the consequences of how they treated you. And it's in that silence that they realize just how much they miss you. This stage isn't just about regret, it's about realization. They see now that your presence wasn't something they could take for granted. The noise, the chaos, the comfort of having you around is gone, and they're left with nothing but the emptiness they created. Don't break the silence. Don't reach out to explain yourself or ease their guilt. Let them sit with it, because in that silence, they'll come to understand the depth of what they've lost, and that understanding will stay with them far longer than any words you could have said. 9. The sting of rejection. Rejection has a way of cutting deeper than most emotions, especially when it comes from someone they thought would always be there. When you disappear, you deliver a silent but powerful message. I'm done. And trust me, they feel it. They might not admit it, not at first, but that sting of rejection is immediate and undeniable. They've been walking through life assuming you'd always be around, that no matter how they treated you, you'd stay. You were their safety net, the one who cared more, who tried harder. But now, that net is gone, and they're left free-falling into uncertainty. This isn't the kind of rejection that comes with a dramatic breakup or heated argument. It's quieter, colder, and far more impactful. When you vanish, you strip them of the comfort they once took for granted. They don't just lose you, they lose the validation and attention you provided. Rejection forces them to confront something they didn't expect, their own actions. They start asking themselves why you left, what they did wrong, and whether it's too late to fix things. But here's the thing, rejection isn't about them anymore. It's about you taking your power back. You see, people who take others for granted often believe they hold all the cards. They think they can dictate the pace of the relationship, decide when to engage and when to ignore. But when you remove yourself from the equation, they lose that control, and the sting of rejection becomes a painful reality check. The beauty of this stage is that you don't have to do anything except stay gone. No explanations, no dramatic exits, just silence. Rejection isn't about hurting them. It's about showing them that you're no longer willing to accept less than you deserve. And that, my friend, is where your real power lies. 10. The fear that brings them crawling back. Fear has a way of breaking even the strongest facade. When they realize you're truly gone, when the silence stretches on and the rejection sinks in, fear takes over. This isn't just fear of being alone. It's the fear of losing someone irreplaceable. They start imagining you with someone else, laughing, thriving, living your best life without them. The thought of you moving on, finding happiness in a life that no longer includes them, is unbearable. They feel the panic rising, and suddenly, their pride, their ego, all the walls they've built around themselves start to crumble. This is when they'll do anything to get you back. They'll send the long, heartfelt messages, filled with apologies and promises to change. They'll show up unannounced, trying to prove they care. They'll beg, plead, and try to make you believe that this time things will be different. But here's the truth. Their fear isn't about you. It's about them. They're scared of losing the comfort you provided, the stability you represented. They're not crawling back because they've changed. They're crawling back because they're afraid of facing life without you. This is your moment of choice. Do you let them back in, knowing the pattern could repeat? Or do you stand firm, knowing you deserve better? The fear they feel is powerful, but it's not your responsibility to soothe it. You've reclaimed your power, and now it's up to you to decide how to use it. Let them feel the fear. Let them experience the loss, because only then will they truly understand what they had and what they'll never take for granted again.